When we talk about Louisa May Alcott's Little Women, the characters are instantly sorted into moral categories. Jo is the heroine, the brilliant rebel; Beth is the saint, the gentle soul; Meg is the lovely domestic dreamer. And then, there is Amy. Amy March is the sister consistently pushed to the margins of our affection, often branded the shallowest, the most materialistic, and the most selfish of the four. She is the character we are implicitly, and sometimes explicitly, encouraged to dislike. But in the emotive archive, we are here to challenge sentimentality and expose the psychological friction points in literature. We ask a dangerous question. Why do we truly hate Amy March? The narrative we inherit tells us to dislike her because she burns Jo's manuscript, an unforgivable act of artistic vandalism. We dislike her because she is vain, perpetually concerned with her nose and her wardrobe. We dislike her because she openly admits her intention to marry rich. But what if this collective vilification is not an objective judgment of her character, but rather a chilling reflection of our own deep-seated discomfort, our own internalized misogyny, when faced with a woman who unapologetically pursues her own success, prosperity, and social leverage? What if Amy March is the only true economic and social realist in the March household, and we despise her precisely because her pragmatism holds an uncomfortable truth about female ambition? This is the ambition paradox. We champion female ambition, but only when it is directed toward traditionally noble goals. Artistic expression, fighting for abstract causes, or even, like Jo, earning money to support the family. We celebrate Jo's ambition because it is selfless and messy. Amy's ambition, conversely, is singular, calculated, and directed inward. She wants money, beauty, and social standing for herself, as tools for self-preservation. And in the feminine social contract, demanding these things for oneself is the greatest sin. Amy's greatest transgression, the sin that sets her apart from her sisters, is her unflinching acknowledgement that money is the necessary currency of freedom. While Jo dreams of being a literary genius, Amy calculates the cost of living. She is the only one who truly grasps the systemic vulnerability of the March women. They live in a house supported by Marmie's moral platitudes and Papa's minimal, often absent, income. They are constantly reliant on the charity of others, most notably the wealthy Mr. Lawrence and the eccentric Aunt March. Amy sees this reliance not as a charming sacrifice but as a dangerous liability. She knows that in 19th century America, a woman without independent wealth is perpetually a dependent, a beautiful parasite. Contrast this with Jo. Jo's ambition is often glorified because she rejects the social game. She disdains wealth and convention. But look closer at Jo's motivation. She wants to sell her stories to gain money for the family and for Beth. Her self-interest is always sublimated into service. Amy's self-interest, however, is pure. She wants to be rich so she can travel, study art, and live beautifully. She is the only sister who openly and honestly states, "I'm not going to be poor." This honesty acts as a mirror, exposing the hidden hypocrisy of the March family's philosophy. The pervasive, yet unspoken, rule that goodness requires a degree of financial suffering. Amy challenges this philosophy head-on, and for this, she is punished by the narrative's lack of sentimentality toward her. This brings us back to the fire incident, often cited as the definitive proof of her villainy. Amy, in a childish fit of rage and jealousy, burns Jo's manuscript. It is a cruel, unforgivable act. But we analyze the emotional trigger. Amy is constantly striving for acceptance, particularly from Jo and her mother. When Jo rejects Amy's plea to join the excursion, she is rejected by her artistic idol and the group's dynamic. Amy's action, while morally reprehensible, is an extreme, twisted cry for recognition, screaming, "My existence is valid. My feelings matter." It is the desperate act of a young woman who feels perpetually overshadowed by the genius and goodness of her elder sisters. Amy's method is wrong, but her underlying need, to be seen and valued, is universal. The true difference between the March sisters is not the intensity of their ambition, but the direction of their risk. Jo risks financial stability for artistic freedom. Beth risks her life for emotional service. Amy risks social disapproval for financial and creative security. In the eyes of society, Jo and Beth's risks are noble because they serve others or abstract ideals. Amy's risk is ignoble because it serves herself. This distinction reveals the very heart of the ambition paradox. When a woman focuses her drive inward, she is swiftly labeled selfish. Amy's social intelligence is another key trait that renders her unlikable. While Jo stumbles through drawing rooms and alienates people with her fierce bluntness, Amy is an astute observer of social power dynamics. She understands that charm, grace, and impeccable presentation are forms of capital that a woman can and must leverage. She hones her soft power because she knows it is her only negotiable asset in a restrictive world. When she is sent to live with Aunt March, she doesn't fight the situation, like Jo would, she studies it. She learns the etiquette, the language, and the leverage points of the wealthy, preparing herself for the eventual economic necessity of marriage. This is not shallowness, it is strategic self-investment. The collective hatred for Amy is, therefore, a kind of narrative displacement. We cannot afford to criticize Jo, the aspiring writer, because she represents our own rebellious artistic desires. We cannot criticize Beth, the saint, because she represents the pure sacrifice we are taught to admire. So, we displace all our discomfort with female self-interest, materialism, and hard-nosed reality onto Amy. She becomes the necessary villain, the antithesis to the March family's romanticized ideals, allowing us to maintain the comforting illusion that women can achieve freedom purely through goodness and art, without ever having to acknowledge the messy, unromantic power of money and social positioning. Amy March forces us to look in the mirror, and the uncomfortable truth she holds is that sometimes, being the most pragmatic means being the most hated. The greatest service Amy March provides to the reader is her absolute refusal to participate in the March family's cherished narrative of noble poverty. This deeply ingrained philosophy, perpetuated by Marmee and her husband, glorifies the family's financial struggle as a mark of moral superiority. The message is clear. Suffering makes you spiritual, and seeking wealth makes you vulgar. This philosophy led to the quiet, devastating sacrifice of Beth, but Amy is the sole dissenter, the sister who recognizes this romanticization of hardship as a toxic, disabling lie. Amy's core belief, stated early and often, is brutally honest. I want to be rich, and I will marry rich. For many readers, this statement is the instant disqualifier, the mark of her selfishness. Yet, we must place this declaration within the harsh, non-negotiable context of the 19th century. For women like the March sisters, the concept of financial independence was largely an illusion. They could work, like Jo, but their earnings were minimal, unstable, and often diverted to the family's needs. Women had virtually no property rights. Once married, their assets, if any, often transferred to their husbands. In this environment, marriage was not primarily a romantic endeavor, it was, first and foremost, a binding economic contract. Amy, unlike her sisters, confronts this reality without blinking. She is the only one who truly sees and articulates the financial tightrope the family walks. Meg, marrying John Brooke for love, quickly learns the crushing weight of poverty, constantly worrying about bills and sacrificing small comforts. Amy looks at Meg's struggle and sees a cautionary tale, not a romantic ideal. Amy's practicality is an act of self-preservation, a firm decision to secure her life so that she is never forced to choose between dignity and subsistence. Her goal is not greed, it is insurance. Amy's understanding of social leverage, the art of soft power, is often mistaken for vanity. When she obsesses over her clothing, her manners, and her ability to engage in polite, witty conversation, she is not merely being frivolous. She is investing in her only viable asset. Her charm, her grace, and her striking appearance are the tools she must use to negotiate a secure economic future. In a world where a woman's professional options were limited to governess or teacher, the ability to secure a financially advantageous marriage was the highest form of strategic career planning. Amy is simply the most professional March sister. Her perspective stands in direct opposition to her sister Jo's. Jo's artistic ambition is powerful, but it is ultimately chaotic. Jo seeks a grand masterpiece, believing that genius alone will solve her problems. Amy, after realizing her own artistic limitations during her time in Europe, makes a pivot that is equally ambitious but far more practical. She chooses to excel at craft rather than striving for the unattainable label of genius. This demonstrates a profound level of self-awareness as strength. Amy knows her limits, adjusts her goals, and focuses her energy where she can achieve mastery and, crucially, stability. The pursuit of Fred Vaughn, though unsuccessful, perfectly illustrates Amy's strategic foresight. She saw Fred as a means to achieve her goals, travel, study, and financial security. Her willingness to engage in this scheme is uncomfortable because it exposes the uncomfortable truth. Survival often requires emotional detachment and strategic planning, traits society prefers not to see in its idealized heroines. She is willing to trade the intense, messy emotional life for a life of guaranteed dignity. She understood that the burden of emotional labor, which the March women constantly provided for free, was ultimately unsustainable without financial security. Amy's European trip, financed by Aunt March, is the ultimate validation of her pragmatism. While Jo yearned for this expansion and independence, it is Amy who secures it. She achieves the geographical and cultural freedom that Jo craved, not through the struggle of writing, but through the disciplined application of social leverage. This trip is the crucible where Amy sheds the last vestiges of the noble poverty lie, realizing that her true artistic growth and self-discovery can only occur once her basic economic needs are met. In essence, Amy March is the family's resident economic truth-teller. She is the one who dares to call the March family poor, who dares to admit that she doesn't like wearing patched gloves, and who dares to use her head, not just her heart, to plan her future. We hate her because she is immune to the romantic fallacy that elevates suffering over success. She represents the necessary, unsentimental reality that financial freedom is the true foundation of personal freedom, a reality that the fictional world, and often our real world, prefers to overlook. The ultimate test of Amy March's ambition, and the point at which our collective judgment becomes most complicated, is her eventual marriage to Theodore Lawrence, or Laurie. This union is often viewed by sentimental readers as a consolation prize, a second-best ending after Laurie failed to win Jo. But when dissected through the lens of economic and social strategy, the marriage of Amy and Laurie is revealed to be the most logical, mature, and strategically sound outcome of the entire novel. Amy's journey to Laurie is not a narrative accident, it is the culmination of her relentless commitment to self-improvement and her understanding of social equilibrium. She did not marry Laurie for the same passionate, messy reasons Meg married John. Amy married Laurie because their union fulfilled a mutually beneficial contract that transcended mere romance. Amy gained the financial security, social standing, and access to European culture she had always craved. Laurie, conversely, gained something far more critical: purpose and structure. Before Amy, Laurie was drifting, a charming but aimless young man perpetually trapped in the role of the spoiled grandson and Jo's co-conspirator. He was an emotional dependent, seeking Jo's approval and mirroring her rebellious spirit without possessing any genuine, independent ambition of his own. Jo rejected Laurie precisely because their relationship was one of chaotic, codependent camaraderie. They were two children refusing to grow up, and Jo, in her most mature act of self-preservation, recognized that marriage to Laurie would stifle her artistic growth. Amy steps into this vacuum not as a lover, but as a disciplinarian and a partner in growth. She teaches Laurie the maturity he lacked. She challenges his idleness, criticizes his self-pity, and demands that he channel his considerable energy and fortune into something productive. She does this not with the furious, protective temperament of Jo, but with the cool, rational authority of a peer who understands the value of potential. In fact, Amy's greatest act of affection toward Laurie is her refusal to indulge his childishness. She sees him not just as a wealthy man, but as a project worthy of investment. Their marriage, therefore, is a profound rejection of the romantic ideal. It is stable, rational, and highly effective. Amy controls the emotional and social tenor of the marriage, while Laurie provides the means. It is a powerful illustration that a functional, successful partnership requires more than just shared passion. It requires shared goals, complementary skills, and mutual respect for each other's strengths. Amy's strength is organization, practicality, and social grace. Laurie's strength is his wealth and boundless good nature. This contrast leads us to the ultimate point of the ambition paradox. We hate Amy because she chooses the stable, pragmatic path and is rewarded with both love and security. We love Jo because she rejected the stable path, choosing artistic struggle, and yet, the narrative ultimately forces her back toward domesticity. Amy's path is the uncomfortable mirror showing us that often, the most secure and fulfilling life comes from making the sensible, unsentimental choice. Furthermore, Amy's self-awareness regarding her art is a critical aspect of her maturity. She eventually realizes that she is not a true genius like Jo might be. She is a talented artisan, capable of beautiful craft, but lacking the raw, world-altering spark of true artistic genius. Her decision to embrace this reality, to choose craft over tortured genius, is an immense sign of strength. She refuses to indulge in the self-destructive myth that a woman must suffer, starve, and struggle for her art to be meaningful. She achieves success and comfort first, then dedicates herself to art, effectively proving that financial stability is the truest foundation for creative pursuit. The fundamental reason Amy is often loathed is because she challenges the notion that true feminine virtue must be coupled with self-abnegation. We despise the girl who wants everything, art, money, love, and status, while we idealize the girl, like Jo, who is willing to sacrifice everything. Amy March, the most maligned sister, is ironically the sister best equipped for the modern world. She is economically literate, socially fluid, self-aware, and disciplined. She is the heroine who understands that sometimes, being the most practical requires being the most unpopular, but in the end, her life is the most completely realized and most stable of all the March sisters. We arrive at the final, unavoidable conclusion of our analysis. Amy March is not the villain, she is the anti-sacrifice heroine of Little Women. Her life is a living, breathing rejection of the dangerous ideology that destroyed her sister, Beth, and nearly derailed Jo. Amy is the March sister who survived and thrived because she dared to acknowledge the transactional reality of her world and, critically, prioritized her own well-being over emotional labor. Amy's story forces us to hold up a difficult mirror to ourselves and the enduring societal standards imposed on women. The deep-seated animosity many readers harbor for Amy is not rooted in her actions, which, aside from burning the manuscript, are largely pragmatic, but in what she represents. The woman who refuses to be emotionally cheap. She refuses to sacrifice her comfort, her ambitions, or her self-interest for the sake of the family's romantic ideal of poverty. She is the psychological counterpoint to Beth, and this Beth-Amy dichotomy is the most powerful lesson in the entire novel. Beth died because she internalized the belief that her value lay in her complete self-erasure and perpetual service. Amy lived, secured her future, and achieved a form of true independence because she held the opposite belief. That her value lay in her own self-possession and strategic self-interest. The choice between the two is stark, and yet, readers are consistently guided to idealize the path of suffering, Beth, and vilify the path of prosperity, Amy. This is the uncomfortable truth. Our preference for Beth over Amy is the literary manifestation of our own internalized misogyny, a prejudice that rewards compliance and punishes female self-determination. Amy's marriage to Laurie provides the final proof of her strategic genius. She did not just gain a rich husband, she gained a partner whom she could elevate and stabilize. She liberated Laurie from his own aimlessness, giving him direction and purpose. In return, Laurie liberated Amy from the devastating cycle of economic vulnerability that characterized the March family's noble poverty. She achieved freedom not through rebellion, but through strategic assimilation and leverage. Amy March demonstrates that sometimes, the most revolutionary act a woman can perform is to become financially secure and unapologetically happy. The greatest irony is that Amy, the sister who most openly pursued wealth, is the one who ultimately enabled the most meaningful and financially sustainable outcomes for the family. Her wealth allows Jo to establish the school, ensuring her and Professor Bear's independence. Amy's pragmatic approach to money, which we initially condemn, becomes the financial catalyst for the entire March legacy. Her self-interest was, in the end, the engine of the family's collective security. Amy March is the heroine who champions the uncomfortable reality. True independence is impossible without financial independence. Her life challenges the toxic idea that artistic integrity or moral goodness must be coupled with poverty. She is the necessary correction to the sentimental flaws of Little Women. We must now move beyond the romanticized portrait of the March family and use Amy's clear-eyed pragmatism as the foundation for our continued critique. We have uncovered the ambition paradox. The truth that we hate Amy because she is a mirror reflecting the ambition we fear to unleash in ourselves. This leads us directly into our next deep dive, where we will examine how this inherent fear of ambition impacts the rest of the novel's outcome. If Amy March's unapologetic ambition resonated with you, and you recognize the uncomfortable truth of the ambition paradox, we invite you to continue this critical journey with the Emotive Archive. Hit the like button if this analysis challenged your view of female self-interest, and subscribe for our next deep dive. We now turn our attention to the compromises Amy's sisters were forced to make in the face of these societal pressures. Which of Amy's qualities, her pragmatism, her self-awareness, or her pursuit of wealth, do you think is the most necessary, yet most criticized, quality in the modern ambitious woman? Share your thoughts below.